We figured to do some boogie today. We got 3 rounds of mock drafting today, and let's go and get our groove right on here and start this thing off with the Tennessee Titans. I feel like we got a little disco vibe. We got a little John Travolta action going on. Tennessee, Music City, what a fitting way to figure this thing all out to start it. With their first pick, I took Travis Hunter. I can't not take Travis Hunter at number 1, I feel like. And when we look at this quarterback in a whole vacuum, I almost feel like I'm going out to the grocery store and I'm saying to myself, man, I would love to go to Publix or Kroger or whatever you have locally. I'd love to go to one of those actual grocery stores, but you know what? I need to go shopping on a discount. I got to go to Walmart and get everything there. I got to get my broccoli. I got to get my meats over there, even though maybe I don't want to do that, but I kind of have to because I'm stuck. It's a bit of a discounted quarterback class. And that's okay. And I think there are going to be quarterbacks that come from this class that will be starters in the NFL. There just might be more of a developmental cycle with some of these guys. So that's why I don't feel comfortable taking somebody at the first overall pick, or maybe even in the first round. I don't feel comfortable with a lot of these guys, but I do feel like there are really talented guys in this quarterback class. And Carson Beck is going to get hated on with this second pick, and I understand that. But at the same time, Carson Beck, somebody I was not high on in the preseason, but I do think he is better than where he is currently being hated on right now. People are talking about this dude as a UDFA player. He is not a UDFA guy. He is a round 2, round 3 prospect in my eyes. Somebody that did lose his weapons and Brock Bowers this offseason. And that wide receiving core he had to deal with at Georgia this season was shocking at times. All right. The amount of drops that he faced were ridiculous. So, you talk about some of those things. It wasn't all on the receivers. The ball placement this season for Carson Beck was not good. And that could be something, too. He was dealing with accuracy issues. So I do want to be frank that it's not. It's partially on Carson Beck. It's partially on the offense and the receivers and everybody, the supporting cast. It's a little bit of everything. But I do think Carson Beck has all the talent. And you're talking about a guy that has the stature. He's got the size. He's got enough athleticism to maneuver the pocket. And I do think that's something he is solid at. So he's a really good middle of the field thrower. And I think he's going to thrive here with Brian Callahan's offense. So that's why I took Carson Beck at that second overall pick for the Tennessee Titans. As I talk about, I understand the pushback on that one. And hit me where it hurts. But this is my mock draft. I went Travis Hunter in the first round, and then I got a quarterback in round number 2. Maybe you could sign a Kirk Cousins, especially since he's probably going to get released after this offseason. And that way you don't have to start Carson Beck right away. Let's go on to the Brownies here, and we got some good stuff here. We got some real fire, hopefully. But Cam Ward at their second overall pick. I know we're going a little bit out of order here, but people are going to notice and go to that right away and be like, whoa, what are you doing, G-Sling? Are you crazy? And I'll be like, yeah, man. But I just think that Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, all these guys, don't be surprised if the NFL is not nearly as high on these dudes and they don't go as early. Now, I still think that we're going to see at least one quarterback go in the first round, so this is a little unrealistic in that regard, but I do think there's a real chance that these quarterbacks slip at least to the mid first round / late first round, and then teams try to trade up for these guys back into the first round to get that 5th-year contract. So I'm just saying that while I understand you're seeing mock drafts, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders going number 1 overall, top 5 picks, I don't see that personally. I would take Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, like a lot of these guys, Mason Graham, etc., over guys like Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And I still, like I talked about earlier, I think that there will be quarterbacks that come from this class. It's just a matter of development and putting them in the right scenario. And you got to make sure you have a football team. And for the Cleveland Browns, you got to make sure you have a left tackle, some receivers, some defense, more defensive help, especially if you lose Myles Garrett, who's been a cornerstone for this team for so long. And that's why I went Abdul Carter, because he's, to me, one of the best players in this entire draft class. What he brings off the edge is just going to be ridiculous for this team. And if you do have to lose Myles Garrett because he says, hey, look, I am tired of rebuilds and all this stuff with Cleveland, I want to go to a team that can win, then it makes sense, right? And they need more draft picks to be able to fill some of these voids on the roster, like a left tackle and whatnot. So I think it's very realistic for them to do that. And then you get your quarterback in round number 2 in Cam Ward or whoever is available at this point, whether it's Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, whoever ends up falling, right? I think that makes a lot of sense for this team. And then we go on to their round 3 picks. Charles Grant, Travion Henderson. Henderson's a really solid running back. He's got great speed and going to be that long-term Nick Chubb replacement. They can still bring Chubb back, and I'm cool with that, but Henderson will certainly give them some more depth in the room behind Jerome Ford. And then you got Charles Grant from William and Mary. We'll see how he does at the Senior Bowl. That's going to be a big testament for him. But obviously, the size profile in terms of arm length with his two almost having 36-inch arms, teams are going to love this guy, and his athleticism and his traits are up the wazoo. I can't wait to see what happens with Charles Grant at the Senior Bowl because he could be a riser into the first round. He has those type of traits. But for right now, it's just a little too early, and he needs to get stronger and get better with his technique and with his hands to really warrant that first-round selection. But they need offensive linemen in all situations. Whether he plays guard, whether he plays tackle, they need offensive linemen. OG, and on to the G-men we go. And here we go again, right? The quarterback scenario where Shedeur Sanders falls in the second round. Once again, we'll just see how it all plays out. I'm going to keep shaking things up, but I try to do one draft more realistic, one that is a little bit more on what I would do. This is kind of what I would do in a little sensitive way. And I like Shedeur. He's my number one quarterback in this class, and I certainly think he can be a franchise quarterback. At the same time, there are some concerns there for why I would not take him top 10 at the moment. And that's why, some of those things we've listed with the size, maybe the lack of arm talent, athleticism, some of those high-end traits, you do, look at it the next level. And those are things that it does take. Now, I love his mental processing. He needs to get better in and out of the pocket, being able to deal with pressure and stuff like that. But he certainly has the moxie and the know-how. And I'm not worried about Shedeur Sanders in terms of the limelight either. So that's not something I worry about. But the reason why I went Will Johnson too is because they still need a cornerstone in that secondary. Yeah, you got Deonte Banks, and Banks has had his fair share of ups and downs, and he is going against the one, so I got to be frank with that because that is something you have to note. But I think between Will Johnson, Deonte Banks, Cordell Flott can be a really good backup, high-end player that can play on the inside as well, give you versatility. And then Andrew Phillips, who's been fantastic so far in his rookie season, and going to year number 2 as your slot corner, so at least you hit there big time. But I think adding that cornerstone on the outside, that number 1 corner, is still a necessity for this Giants football team. Final pick, I went Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. And Zabel is a guy that could end up playing center, even at the next level, center guard. He has versatility, really, to play. He's played 4 positions in college, so he has the versatility. And some teams will view him as a center, some will view him as a guard. Some could even play him a little bit at tackle. I think more right tackle would be his calling. However, I certainly think he can bring a lot of versatility to this Giants football team that needs help on that right side in general. Whether it's right guard, right tackle, he's going to compete for one of those positions and help out their offense line. Protect Shedeur Sanders. On to the New England Patriots, and I emphasize new head coach, Mike Vrabel. Now, we'll see, right? I think Mike Vrabel's going to get the job. I really do. And especially since the Jets interview him, they always got to steal their coaches. That's just how it works there with the New England Patriots and the New York Jets, that chemistry that they have and just stealing coaches. But going on to the draft picks itself, Will Campbell, left tackle. And I get Will Campbell might be a little high here. At the same time, you need reliability. And when I look at this draft, and even though I like Josh Connolly, and I think he is my number 1 tackle in this draft, I do understand Will Campbell, to me, is the most solid player. If there's one guy in this draft that I'm saying is not going to be a bust, that will be a very reliable player for whichever team drafts him, it's Will Campbell. Barring injuries and stuff, he's got the moxie, the on the field, off the field stuff with Will Campbell. It's just all the boxes are checked. I hear the guy has got everything to succeed, the work ethic, all those things. He's obviously got good size in terms of bulk. He's got good strength. He isn't the longest guy, and he will lose to some speed off the edge. However, I don't have a problem with him sticking at left tackle at the next level. I really think he is going to continue to work on his hands and getting better and better, and he's already solid in that department. I think he's going to be a really solid left tackle for this New England Patriots team, and they need a clear upgrade. Then you got Princely Umanmielen as some more edge rush for this team because their edge rushers right now, other than Keon White, they could certainly use an influx of edge talent there. So that was a pretty obvious pick. And with his athleticism and burst off the edge, good solid bend as well to get after the quarterback is going to really help them out. Then we got a couple more offensive weapons for Drake May. So offensive line, weapons, prioritizing that as much as possible. Trey Harris, Gunnar Helm, both going to be big-time targets for Drake May in this offense. But Harris gives you another big weapon on the outside, really sure-handed. And then Gunnar Helm, also been the top target for the Hook'em Horns this season. And he gives you somebody, I know you have Hunter Henry, but they use 2 tight ends. Now, they're going to have new coaching, so that's going to be something we'll have to see which head coach comes in there. But I do feel like even long haul, you're adding a more athletic prospect with Gunnar Helm than Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry is somebody that's good, and you want to keep him, but you need to start thinking about developing somebody behind Hunter Henry. Tight end's position does take a little bit of time. And I just felt like with the value, too, you're getting a really solid tight end with some upside in the 3rd round at pick number 77. On to the Jags, which I'm in my Jag right now. No, I don't have a Jag, but that'd be pretty sick. Jags are pretty cool. I'm not a huge car person, but yeah, they're pretty dang cool, man. And those commercials, they always got those British guys playing them. But going on to this number 5 overall pick, Mason Graham. This was a BPA approach. They have some other bigger voids probably on this roster, like cornerback, but I just felt like let's change it up because they cornerback all the time. So I do think that this is a really solid option as well. And they've been looking to hit on that interior for a very long time. You drafted Mason Smith in this past one in the 2nd round. You got Eric Armstead in free agency, even though decided to use him off the edge, which new coaching, they could end up, I imagine they're going to be looking at all new coaching, then they could move to more of a 3-4. I think that would actually be ideal for this Jaguars team because then you got Hamilton in at nose. You could have Armstead as more your 5-3 tech, and then you could have Mason Graham as another on the opposite side as your 1-3 tech hybrid. And then don't forget about Mason Smith too. Can they rotate in and out? You got Ledbetter. He's a free agent, but anyway, you can figure all those sort of things out. But I think Mason Graham's just BPA. Azareye'h Thomas from Florida State. I like him a ton from there, and I think he's somebody that gives you that press man ability, depending on what type of scheme they decide to run. He has all the athletic tools, the size profile. He just needs to get better tackling, and it's limited with him. It's a very limited sample size. He probably could have benefited from coming down to one more season. However, he came out this year, which I'm excited because I think he's a super good talent, and somebody's going to get a steal on him. And then we got on a late day 2, you got round 3 picks. You got Ashton Jeanty from Louisville, who's going to add some more edge rushing depth for this team because their depth is a little bit thin. So we get 2 defensive linemen to really bolster up the pass rush even more. So secondary, obviously, we void here, but maybe they go out in free agency in this department because that's definitely an option. So I like to talk about it. I like to change it up a little bit. Maybe they go out and pick up somebody like a Carlton Davis or whatever in free agency, and then they feel good about their secondary. But Dylan Fairchild's going to finish up this draft on their offensive line to fill that right guard position because that is a void right now. So finding somebody to be a Brandon Sheriff replacement would be a nice addition for them. And Fairchild is a very good football player. I feel like he's super underrated. He's like just a bull. He's got extremely strong hands. Doesn't have tremendous arm length or anything like that, but he's got solid arm length. Doesn't have crazy lateral quickness, but he is a good football player and has grit and run blocking mentality as well. And before you bet me that this will not happen, I'm taking Benjamin Morrison at number 6 over for Vegas. And look, Benjamin Morrison is clearly somebody that I am so high on. And you can strike me on this one, but come back to me in maybe a year or two and say, you were totally wrong about Benjamin Morrison, and I'm cool with it. But I like Ben Morrison so much. I think he's going to be a terrific corner, somebody that, barring injury, and I understand that's the reason why he's falling is because of injury. The dude has the talent to be a top 5 pick in the class. I like him better than Will Johnson. And strictly as a corner, I actually kind of even like him as much as Travis Hunter, even maybe a little bit more. It's just strictly a one-on-one cover guy. Travis Hunter was my number 1 player. He's been my number 1 overall player, and I don't want to diss Travis Hunter or Will Johnson, both phenomenal prospects. But I think Morrison is right there with those guys. So you get a guy that in that secondary that they have had such a problem filling. They need a stud in the secondary. Morrison's going to do that. And then we go on offense on day 2 with Jalen Milroe into this offense. He's going to at least add a spark. He's going to give you something with his rushing ability early on, which is going to really help him as a rookie if he has to play. But I would definitely suggest you either pick up a veteran, maybe a Russell Wilson or somebody that can come in early on and play and kind of help out Jalen Milroe. That definitely could be an option for this team. Marcus Mariota would be a really good mentor, actually. I would love that. They need to pick up Marcus Mariota. He'd be a fantastic mentor for Milroe. Anyway, Milroe, he has all the tools. He has the arm talent, the athleticism, but he needs to work on up here in that processor. But I've heard he's got great work ethic and a great GPA, somebody that had finished with high academic marks as well. So he's got the work ethic. And then we get Caleb Johnson, Jalen Royals to help out their offense some more. Royals is going to be another weapon on the outside for them. It's going to be interchangeable, somebody that can play inside out, but he definitely has some solid burst athleticism. His long speed may not be as crazy or anything like that, but I do think he's got really good burst and acceleration. He's a really good yak machine as well. And he continued to work on that route running some more. I think he's got some tremendous ability to create space for himself. And whatever team drafts him is going to really get a nice playmaker. We'll see how he does at the Senior Bowl. That's going to really determine whether or not he's a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round guy, in my opinion. And then Caleb Johnson, going to be a great running back for them. The Iowa Hawkeye, get them some more running back ability, be that number one running back for this team that they're kind of just missing this season. Sincere McCormick, it's solid. It can be a rotational player. They've gone through some dudes, Alexander Madison, Zeus has just not been able to quite step up for them. They need that dog as a runner. I think Caleb Johnson's going to be that dude. He's, I think, got underutilized as a receiver, too. I think he's going to add some receiving element to this team as well. On to the Jets, Jets, and I'm taking Malachi Starks, the Georgia safety. I know. We're going to go ahead and fill one of those voids at safety because we got plenty of voids at the safety position. We need 2 new safeties. I do like Tony Adams, but obviously him and the owner, probably his ad awareness rating isn't good enough or something. I'm sorry, but I had to do it. I'm a Jets fan, so I have to poke fun at it, but I don't like it. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? At this point, it's kind of crazy. Malachi Starks, though, certainly going to upgrade this room. Give us a star in the back end that we desperately need. And then Isaiah Bond. Add some more spark, add some more explosion into this offense. And while, we got Garrett Wilson, who's an explosive playmaker. If you add an Isaiah Bond with him, that's going to be crazy. And maybe we can get ourselves at least a little junior version of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And then you got Jeanty Cornelius, the Oregon right tackle. He'll be a nice understudy. Hopefully we bring back Morgan Moses, but if we don't, then we're going to definitely have to pick somebody up in free agency anyway. I think Jeanty Cornelius certainly has all the ability to be a solid starting right tackle in the NFL. I don't think he's got elite athleticism. He doesn't have elite size or anything like that. His arm length is definitely going to be on the lower end. But I do like him a lot with his hand technique, the way he plays the right tackle position. He has a natural feel as a tackle. So he'll have some limitations athletically versus some guys to the next level, but I do think he's very solid and can be a very, very good opposite pairing there with Olu Fashanu to fill out that tackle position for the future ongoing. You got Carter Warren, at least add more competition, Max Mitchell. On to the Carolina Panthers, and we're starting off a little different in this draft. I didn't go edge rusher. I decided to change it up since I do it all the time, and I think Tetairoa McMillan, Air McMillan as I like to call him, is going to add another big-time weapon in here. Him and Xavier Legette on the outside, that is scary. And you can find a slot option on the cheap for Adam Thielen behind him, like in the 4th, 5th round possibly, or, being free agency, get a little bit more depth there. So I'm not forcing that, but McMillan could also play as a big slot too. He can move inside out. Anyway, McMillan adds another big weapon for Bryce Young, who has really shined, man. I'm so happy for Bryce Young. He really has earned it with all the adversity he has faced. But let's go ahead and make sure we got all the tools for him. And then on defense, we do get a pass rusher, Donovan Azareye'h, the Boston College edge rusher, is so athletically gifted. He's extremely explosive. He's got good bend, great twitch to be able to shoot gaps and stuff in the run game. But obviously, where his bread and butter is a pass rusher. He has got some of the better hands in this class in terms of being able to put together pass rush moves, which I really like about Donovan Azareye'h. And those are the type of guys I'm willing to bet on. I actually think he could go, personally, I would take him round 1, no problem about it. He just kind of fell, to be honest with you, but I think he's a phenomenal football player, and I would feel comfortable taking him in the first round. He has the lack of play strength and the lack of size is going to be the big knock for Donovan Azareye'h, and that's the reason why I think he could fall to the second round, but a really good football player. And then Andrew Makuba from Texas is going to help them out. And they have plenty of voids there. Everybody basically is a free agent in that back end, so I think they definitely need a playmaker there in the safety room. And Makuba has been one of the best playmakers in all of college football. So he's going to really, really help them out in that regard. And he's got really solid athleticism, too. The dude is twitched up and very, very good playmaker. On to the New Orleans Saints. This was not intentional, but we got a lot of local schools here. Texas, Oregon. Oregon would be the furthest away, but LSU, Oklahoma, not super far. Oregon, like I said, that is quite far. So, but anyway, we got Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle. Could play guard for this team, too, but I would say, look, I would consider Banks either right tackle, left tackle, depending on what you want to do with Penning. You can move him inside the guard. A lot of possibilities. And then Fuaga, you can move him back over to right tackle. But Banks just gives them a massive upgrade on this offensive line because their offensive line is not done yet. They need to continue to invest in this offensive line. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with this New Orleans Saints team, especially I just don't know if there's a quarterback I feel comfortable taking, at least in the first round especially. Maybe you go back to day 2 and take another chance on somebody, but maybe we'll see what Ritter can continue to develop into, etc. But I do think they're going to, at some point, take a quarterback, just maybe not in this class. So let's just continue to add fire to this team with Banks, with Harmon, who's going to help that interior, be that guy next to Brian Brzee for the long haul. You got Saunders under contract still, Shepard, but I think that they're going to need to look at long-term, that viable 1-2 punch. You got Mason Taylor. Here's a real local, right? Baton Rouge. Mason Taylor going to be a great tight end replacement for them with Juwan Johnson being a free agent. So I think that you can really elevate that room with Mason Taylor, solid blocker, really good hands as well. Taysom Hill's only under contract for one more season. And Hill's a versatile chess piece player. And then finally, Billy Bowman Jr. from Oklahoma. Going to be a great understudy there and give him some more depth in the safety position. But for Tyrann Mathieu, who's getting a little bit older now, and at this point in his career, you're going to need to add some more safety up to think about upgrading long term. And on to the Buckeyes, should I say, right? The Bears is what I meant to say. But we basically got a ton of Buckeyes players. This was not intentional, just the way the board worked. And yeah, the value. Josh Simmons, I just say you take the best offensive lineman available. Whether it's a tackle, whether it's a guard, whether it's a freaking center, you're taking offensive line there at number 10. And in this case scenario, we're taking Josh Simmons. Hey, Josh Simmons could play guard. I can see it. He's got tremendous strength. So he's somebody that could stick on the inside and just road grade guys on that interior too. So he doesn't have experience in his college days. I don't know in high school if he did or not, but I'd have to look that one up. But Simmons gives you right tackle ability, left tackle ability. So that's swing tackle if you need him. Early on in his career for Braxton Jones, long-term could be the left tackle / he could be a guard, as I talked about. So just helping out this offense line. Maybe move Braxton Jones inside. Now, I do think Jones would not be ideal on the inside, so that would be my only pushback here, and the reason why I'd say if you're going to get those guys out, then Simmons would probably end up being left guard early on in his career, which I'd be totally fine with. I could talk about it. They need to upgrade. Tyleik Williams on that interior will be a great understudy for Andrew Billings. Going to be coming off an injury as well, so they're going to need a nice one-tech for the future next to Gervon Dexter, and I think that Williams is a great one-tech. He's going to be a very, very solid player in the NFL. He knows how to use his hands. He knows how to get off blocks, and that's the most important thing. And he's also got the ability to kind of hindsight around offensive linemen to be able to see and locate the ball carrier. That's huge if you're going to be a one-tech, zero shade, etc. Jack Sawyer, Captain Jack. We're adding some captains in here with Captain Jack Sawyer. Going to be a very, very solid run defender and add some pass rush for this Bears team. You got some pass rushers in here, of course, but you got Booker, you got Sweat. Now you add in Sawyer and obviously Walker. I don't want to discredit him. He's still under contract for another season. And he's been really solid this year, but Jack Sawyer be that fourth guy early on, and then he can develop into hopefully that number 2, number 3 with Booker. Final pick, Cam Skattebo. Had to have some fun with this one. Skattebo was on the board. I'm taking him here. He is obviously what he's able to bring, his energy, his hustle, his mentality to the football field. I want guys like that in the locker room. Skattebo is a beast, and what he was able to do, he had the single best performance that I have seen thus far in the playoffs, and just was on a mission, man, to win that game, and they were very, very close. But Skattebo gives him that wrecking ball in the running back room with DeAndre Swift. And Roschon Johnson, I understand, was drafted. And I'm not saying Roschon's bad, but I think Skattebo would be an upgrade in that department. On to the 49ers, and we stay with a John Lynch mentality. I'm going pass rusher, right? James Pierce Jr., the edge rusher from Tennessee. Get some more juice. Somebody that can learn, develop behind Leonard Floyd for a season. Yetur Gross-Matos is only under a year for one more season. Drake Jackson's been injured, unfortunately, quite a bit. So it's going to be tough to project at this point how much they're going to get out of him. They need more pass rush. Besides Nick Bosa, it was a clear problem. Besides the Bears game this season, it was very inconsistent for this 49er team in terms of who's that number 2 pass rusher. So Pierce Jr. can be that guy. And then you got Marcus Bowe. I think he's fantastic. Bowe has got some of the best hand technique in this draft class in terms of the way he uses his hands. So while he may not be the longest guy, he knows how to combat. Boom, boom, boom. He's got the Kung Fu. Wah! You know what I'm saying? He's got the Hong Kong Fu sort of ability to be able to knock hands off of you type of, so even if you're longer than he is, it doesn't matter because he knows how to use his hands. He needs to get stronger. That's the big thing. But he can fit in Kyle Shanahan's scheme really well with his movement skills. Shamar Turner, Texas A&M interior defense lineman. I think he's going to rise big time with his athletic traits. And if you go back to the Texas A&M film, he was just kind of asked to pin his ears down and be a great run defender. Wait till a team gets their hands on him, teaches him how to use his hands as a pass rusher. It's going to be over. And he can be a great understudy for Malik Collins and that defense line with Javon Hargrave. And then final pick for them, Dalen Everett, Georgia. He has stepped up for Georgia there at the end of the season especially, but he is certainly a long corner. He's got the physical traits. Solid athlete. He's not an elite athlete. I think he's probably going to be like a high 4.4, low 4.5 guy, but he's got good size that's going to help you out on the outside. And if you do end up losing Javarius Ward, as tough as that's going to be, I think that Everett can be a great player that, they don't value corner. It seems like early in the draft, maybe, you never know. If somebody falls, like a Ben Morrison or Will Johnson, maybe this is the year for them to draft one of those dudes. Anyway, Dalen Everett here in the 3rd round could really help get them some more secondary depth. On to the Cowboys here. I'm going Ashton Jeanty. Are you shocked? Oh my goodness. Calm down. Don't go crazy on me out here. But this is one of that's going to be mocked quite a bit for the Cowboys, and I understand. Ashton Jeanty's a stud. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. Jeanty, I think, is going to be like a mix of Alvin Kamara meets, Nick Chubb or something. You know what I mean? Like if they had a togetherness or something, like they're a little bit of a combination. He's just so tough as a runner, but he's also got receiving ability. He doesn't have Nick Chubb's size or anything like that, but he is just such a tough player to tackle. Kareem Hunt maybe would be a good one too. But anyway, Jeanty is a phenomenal runner, phenomenal playmaker. And then we're not done on offense. I got Matthew Golden. He's been a golden receiver there at Texas. He's got great route running ability. He's been a better separator than Isaiah Bond this season. He's been more reliable than Isaiah Bond too. But Matthew Golden going to be a great playmaker for Dak Prescott to go with CeeDee Lamb and Kevontae Turpin as your core of 3. Mingo, I'm sure, will get an opportunity as the big man there. Anyway, I think Golden's going to be a fantastic player to go along with CeeDee Lamb. And then Nick Emanwari here going to help them out in the safety position because their safety room is thin, and you got some young guys, Marquise Bell, Azareye'h Thomas, etc. But I think that they're going to look to try to get younger in the secondary, and I think Nick Emanwari at this point in the draft at 76, I can't pass up on him either because he's just so talented. He's so athletic, can play 2 high shells, and certainly can be another chess piece for this Dallas Cowboys secondary. And I just think that, too, they're going to move on from at least one safety, I think it's going to be Donovan Wilson. I do think they'll keep Malik Hooker, but we shall see how that all works out. I expect them to move on from one of them, so I'm certainly going to add at least a little more competition into the room. And hey, he could be a hybrid linebacker for them too, especially if Overshown takes a little bit of time to get healthy and whatnot. The Miami Dolphins fins up, and I'm taking Josh Connolly Jr., one of my guys in this class. I'm a huge Connolly fan, and I think if Miami says to themselves, we go with super fast guys, athletic dudes, if there is one offensive lineman that they will take, Greer says, Josh Connolly, he's got crazy athleticism, I'll take him. So maybe they finally take an offensive lineman here, and Connolly is fantastic. Great hand placement, really athletic, great lateral mover. He's bulked up, gotten stronger this season. Still needs to continue to get stronger. He could end up moving inside the guard. He's not the biggest guy or anything like that. That's going to be one thing that teams will be looking at, and that's fine. They can move him into left guard because they got a big void on that interior, so that could be an option for this team. I'm not sold on Patrick Paul. We'll see. He's a rookie. Got to give him some time. He's got the length. He's got the size profile that you look for from a left tackle. So I could see him being the franchise left tackle. We shall see, though. They certainly need to add more competition. So you figure out that, and whether Connolly's left guard, left tackle, Patrick Paul maybe compete for right tackle, and they move Austin Jackson in the side to guard. That's all. These are all on the table for this team. But just improve the offensive line. That's my thing. Like their trenches have been such an issue for so very long. They need to improve it. They need to prioritize it. Chris Greer, let's go. Anyway, Walter Nolan, Ole Miss, interior defense line. We're going to add some more depth in there. Besides Zach Seiler, they don't have anybody, I don't think, under contract. So certainly looking for some more defensive line help with Walter Nolan, who kind of fell at this point. So I was like, yeah, I'm taking Walter Nolan with his athletic ability and the power he's improved upon. He's been a great run defender too at Ole Miss this season. And I do want to see him get more consistent with his hands in terms of that counter move, right? When there's some dudes he went up against, for me, when he was watching with Dylan Fairchild, the film on that, Fairchild did a good job stoning him right away. When offensive linemen get their hands on him quick, he kind of struggles with that counter. He's really good off the snap. He's got some quickness and he'll shoot gaps and be a problem for these slower guards. But I do want to see him counter a little bit better. And that's one thing I think he can work on at the next level. Not easy, but with time. And then you go on to late day 2 with Ricky White and Lathan Ransom. So getting some safety help and another wide receiver, especially if Tyreek Hill ends up moving on, they end up trading him. They would get a draft pick, of course, a pretty high draft pick, I would imagine. But Ricky White, really good explosiveness, really good athlete, get some more speed in there next to Jalen Waddle on the outside. And then Lathan Ransom from Ohio State, very solid safety. Doesn't have elite speed, but he's got a very sound, he's a very sound mover. He's a very sound tackler as well. Just somebody that in the back end is going to be a reliable player. He just doesn't let up a whole ton of big plays. And he can be that last line of defense as well. So if you bring back Javon Holland, if you don't bring back Javon Holland, no matter what, you're going to need some safety help because Poyer, I don't expect him to be re-signed. On to the Indianapolis Colts, Chris Ballard. I did something different today. I'm like, I got Tyler Warren every single time. And the Indianapolis Colts fans are probably just skipping through the video at this point. They're like, we already know what's coming up and whatnot. But Chris Ballard, what does he like? He likes athletes. So I went with one of the best athletes in this entire draft, Siobhan Revel. He could easily be a top 10 pick. And I know there's a lot of, big-time scouts that are putting this guy even in the top 10 now. Depending on that ACL, how that recovers, they've got some of the best doctors working on there over at Dallas. So I expect him to get a full recovery. And there, I've heard no major setbacks thus far and whatnot. So he's on track for training camp. So Siobhan Revel, he brings that number one corner. And Jalen Jones, Samuel Warmack, I don't want to take away from those guys. And you got Juju Brents coming back. But I still think they could use an upgrade in that secondary. Somebody that can be that true number one guy. And I think Revel can be a dominant number one elite cornerback. So you get a, stud to finish off that secondary. Then we go tight end. Harold Fanning Jr., especially in this tight end class, there are options. They don't have to go tight end in the first round. But Fanning Jr. is an excellent prospect. He may not be a perfect in-line guy, but the Colts need more of a receiving element anyway. So it's like they can retain, you got Ogletree as a good blocker for them. Maybe they retain Mo Cox on the cheap. I wouldn't imagine he'd be super expensive, and he's been a solid blocker for them as well. But I feel like that you get Harold Fanning Jr., who gives you more of that receiving element for this team and something they're lacking there at the tight end spot for them. And then Chris Paul Jr., the linebacker from Ole Miss, really good mover, really athletic guy, very solid in coverage. I've seen him make multiple plays when I'm watching Ole Miss tape. Like, I'm going there to watch Prince Umamielen and also Walter Nolan, and then I come away with super impressed with Chris Paul. So he's a very good player, and he's also a good basketball player too. 3. But I'm going to go ahead and hopefully find a 3 weapon into that linebacking room next to Jair Franklin. On to the Atlanta Falcons, and it's as simple as apple pie. Even though apple pie is not so simple. Like, you got to have, it's like either the crumble or the lace top. What do you do? And all these sort of things get so fancy with it. But for this one, it's not so fancy. It's grab a pass rusher. Mikael Williams, Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., grab a pass rusher. Mike Green, many options for this team at number 15 overall. They need more edge rush. They need to nip this problem in the butt once and for all. I'm not done on defense. I went Kelvin Winston Jr. Kevin Winston is a phenomenal safety that was just injured this season, but he is going to really help them out in that back end next to Jesse Bates. Yeah, you do have Demeco Helms, and I think Helms is a solid player, and he's going to be a rotational guy for sure, and you can rotate him in and out of the box as well as like a coverage linebacker even. I just feel like they still need an upgrade in that back end and fix this tackling because they've had a lot of missed tackles too this season. I think that Winston would really help that out. A very sure tackler in the back end next to Jesse Bates, who can be obviously your free safety roamer, pick artist specialist. So I just love that combination and helping out that secondary some more. On to the Arizona Cardinals now, and I'm going to go ahead and take Jalen Walker, edge rusher from Georgia. I just think he's a perfect scheme fit. Somebody that can drop into coverage when need to, because they drop their players, their edge rushers into coverage, but they also, need some guys off the edge that can rush the passer more consistently, get pressure on the quarterback. So I think that's a high priority for them. Then you got Deone Walker from Kentucky, a big monster who can play that nose position one shade that they really need. And you got Roy Lopez. I expect him to be back, but they could still use an upgrade there. And then finally, Emory Jones, right tackle / guard. He could compete for that left guard position long haul. I do think there's a real chance they bring back either Will Hernandez or Evan Brown. And you have Isaiah Adam, who looked really solid, man. He had a heck of a week this past one versus the 49ers. Opened some key blocks in the run game. Nonetheless, like Emory Jones competes, maybe gives him some depth at the right tackle position with Jonah Williams getting injured at the end of the season, and he's been dealing with injuries, knee injuries over and over again. So that's something where they need to at least think about investing. You got Christian Jones, so that's somebody too, but I still want to make sure we invest a little bit more into it. So whether he's a guard, whether he's a tackle, it gives you some more depth on that offensive line. On to the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm protecting Joe Burrow. I'm getting a run game going too, so that way Joe Burrow doesn't have to throw for 5,000 yards. 300 plus yards a game every single time. Like, you need to be able to establish a run game as well. And I think Tyler Booker is going to really help them out, but he's also going to be a stonewall protector for Joe Burrow. So if you do have to pass a ton because of the defense, of course, they're going to have a new defensive coordinator anyway. Like, Booker's going to really help out that offensive line. And then we got some defensive help here on round number 2 and 3 with Xavier Watts, going to be a really dynamic playmaker in the back end. Something that they truly miss after losing Jesse Bates. Maybe they'll learn their lesson this time, but Watts going to be that playmaker that I think they were hoping for with Geno Stone. And then finally, Jordan Birch from Oregon, a guy that's just been a little banged up this season, but he has been fantastic. I'm an Oregon fan. I'm a Ducks guy, true and through. And if there's one guy, There's a lot of guys on that defense line. Of course, Harmon, Uyunglele next season. Watch out for Mateo Uyunglele. He's going to be possibly a first rounder. But Birch has been fantastic, as I mentioned earlier. Like, I love that word now. Fantastic. Fantastic. It's something from like Scooby-Doo. That's probably what I'm getting it from. There was this one movie with him where he's just like, fantastic. It was like a TV personality guy. Anyway, Jordan Birch going to be able to work inside out too and just get you some more edge rushing depth. And especially if you lose Sam Hubbard, Miles Murphy, you don't know how far along, how comfortable they are as him as a starter next season. And then obviously Hendrickson going into last year of his deal. So adding some more depth is definitely important. On to Seattle here. And they did let go of their offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, which is a little bit of a, look, I figured it was about 50-50. I think that was a really good chance. But at the same time, maybe they give him another season. They decided to move on. And I understand that the numbers were down clearly. And I do think they need to start saying to themselves, we need to get somebody who's more dedicated to running the football. And one way to get dedicated to the running the football is improving their offensive line. Did I say improving their offensive line? Improving offensive line. Anyway, that is such a big need. John Snyder, it's time. You need to hit on these picks. I think Wyatt Millam is a very high floor prospect. Somebody that West Virginia, they've done it again. I think they got another great offensive lineman at West Virginia in this draft. And Millam has been super steady Eddie at that left tackle position for them. I think he moves inside the guard with just the limitations with his footwork and lack of crazy athleticism, but he's very, very strong. Put him inside. Let him be a wrecking machine in the run game as he is at West Virginia. And he's been a very solid pass protector. Got great grip strength. And then got JT Tuimoloau, the edge rusher from The Ohio State University, because I do think they're going to need a little bit more edge talent, especially because I think there's a real chance that they have to let go of Draymond Jones or somebody, right? Uchenna Nwosu possibly, but I would keep Nwosu personally just because I think, what he brings to the table on and off the field. I'm not saying Draymond Jones is a snub or nothing. Like he's a good guy too, but I think that Nwosu, if he can get healthy, is a really big impact for them too. So you get Tuimoloau, and then you got Nwosu if you keep him, or Draymond Jones, keep one of those guys. Obviously your starters with Hall and Mafe, but getting that third, fourth guy is certainly a necessity for them. JT Tuimoloau can also work a little inside out as well. And then final pick for them, Jackson Dart, developmental quarterback from Ole Miss. He certainly has the traits, has the talent, had a great bowl game as well. So finish off the season on a high. You get yourself a nice quarterback that you can develop behind Geno Smith for a season and hopefully be the franchise quarterback. Going on to the Houston Texans here, and I'm doing a little bit of a shocking move here. I'm going offensive line, Ariante Ursary. I move him inside the guard. Let him just be a mauler, a monster on that interior for the Houston Texans. And they need that. Like, if there's one thing I noticed when watching all the games from the Houston Texans is that when the going gets tough and the tough teams get going, their run game disappears a lot of the times. So, yeah, they're coming off a good week. Dameon Pierce had a monster run. That was awesome. But anyway, I just in general, I think that their run game needs to be more consistent. And when you're going to face these tougher teams like Baltimore in the playoffs, I think that's going to be a problem for them. Can they win at the line of scrimmage? Can you protect C.J. Stroud consistently? Those are all things that I want to prioritize going into this next season and maybe one of the contributing factors for a little bit of a sophomore slump for C.J. Stroud in this offense. And they've had a lot of injuries at the receiver position too, so that's part of it. Nonetheless, I think Ursary is going to help them out tremendously on that interior of their offensive line. And obviously gives you swing tackle ability as well. You got TJ Sanders on the interior of the defense line from South Carolina. He's just a wrecking ball there at South Carolina. Really good athlete. Very twitched up for his size at 6'5". You don't normally see guys that can move like that at that tall of a size. He's a little thin, so he's going to have to add some more play strength, specifically in the run game. But he does add some more help on that interior, which they're thin at right now. Then Savion Williams, the TCU wide receiver, add another weapon in here, especially with the injuries they've had with Tank Dell. And even Nico Collins has been a little banged up here and there. But Williams, super good athlete. If that's even a word, that's a new catchphrase. A super good athlete. Actually, it does make sense. It works. Anyway, Savion Williams helps them out at the receiver position, can give you a little bit of big slot / maybe a little on the outside too. He's going to be more of a gadget guy, I think, early on as he develops as a route runner. That's going to be the key here for Savion Williams. All the other teams passed on Tyler Warren because they got high. And because they got high, I'm taking it here for Mile High. Tyler Warren's the pick from Penn State. I'm not passing on him at this point. No chance, man. It was crazy. Look, I wanted to change some things up, obviously, with the Colts, which normally the landing spot. But Warren here, I do think it's possible he falls, into this range. Look, it's tight end, so you have to figure where's that value. Is he Brock Bowers level athlete? No, but he's a very good football player, and somebody's going to get themselves a stud. Warren adds that elite tight end to this room that I think Sean Payton is going to really want. And if you look at their wide receiving core, they've gotten a lot of really good contributions between, obviously, Courtland Sutton is your number one. You got Mims, Franklin, Vele, etc. that I think they've got some solid production out of. So I don't think they have to force a wide receiver. So getting Warren's going to really help them out in that regard. And then you got Alfred Collins from Texas. Hook 'em horns. Get yourself a nice stud interior one tech, zero shade for their interior defense line to go along with Zach Allen. Their depth is a little thin, and besides Zach Allen on the interior with DJ Jones being a free agent. Then you got Quinshon Judkins, the running back from the Ohio State University. Yeah, they got some guys. They got McLaughlin. I don't think Williams will be back, but maybe he is, maybe he isn't. And then Audric Estime, but Judkins at this point at 87, he just fell. And I took out their running backs like Cam Skattebo and whatnot, but Judkins still a really good football player, just dropping a little bit, dealing with that 1-2 punch with Travion Henderson. But Judkins has great play strength and solid boom to lower the boom and to knock out some guys there as a runner. The cannons are going off. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next on the clock, and let me get my eye patch ready because it's a go ship time, man. It's time. And they're getting Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. This guy lights me up every time I watch him. It's just like a boom. You know what I'm saying? He's an explosion off the line. He also, like Azareye'h, I think he's got fantastic use of his hands, knows how to get and create pass rush moves, whether it's a spin, rip, knows how to use his hands, which is so important as a pass rusher. And one of the reasons why I like LT Overton, I was sad to see him go back to Alabama, but I think LT Overton is going to be a stud to watch out for next season. But Mike Green, really going to be a dynamic pass rusher for this team to go along with Yaya Diaby and also Chris Braswell long haul. Then we got Donovan Jackson to fill out the rest of the offensive line. Like, they just have one void over at that left guard position, possibly Brent Bredesen being a free agent. You fill that right in with Donovan Jackson. You have an elite offensive line to keep this thing rolling, keep their run game ahead, and then obviously keeping Baker Mayfield protected. Danny Stutzman, get a linebacker in here, OU linebacker. He is a great run defender. Coverage, a little bit of a liability with him, but Savachier Dennis, more in that regard, can help you out. And then, like I said, with him and Stutzman, you got to start thinking about without Levante David, right? As tough as that is, you want to say, Levante, let's give you a 20-year contract. Let's let you keep playing until you're 60 years old. That would be cool, but they do need to start thinking about it. The Pittsburgh Steelers here, and I'm adding some electricity into this offense here. They need to get more explosive. They need to get some more playmakers in this room, clearly. The second half of the season, and one of the reasons why, I mean, they've gone against some tough opponents, but their wide receiving core has been really stagnant. George Pickens has struggled. Some of it's on Russ, too, and maybe quarterback is an area that this team needs to at least consider developing somebody on day 2, possibly, maybe even round 1. You never know if somebody falls, right? But I think that you get Luther Burden, add some more help in the wide receiving core. You have George Pickens on the outside as your vertical guy. Burden is your yak monster playmaker. Roman Wilson is your slot guy, route runner. I think that's a really good combination of receivers. And then you got Davidson Igabenoson, the cornerback from the Ohio State University, really feisty cornerback, somebody that can play at the line, play at the catch point at a high level. I think he fits that Steeler mantra to a T. And then you obviously have your outside corner with Joey Porter Jr. to pair along there, and then Jeannie Bishop in the slot, which I'm glad they got to see, play him. A big impact already. And then you got Nick Singleton, Penn State running back, going to be a juice of electricity. So if you lose out on like Jalen Warren, for example, I think that would be a good replacement with Nick Singleton to go along with Najee Harris. So let's say they re-sign Najee Harris, but you need to get another back in there that can add some explosiveness. Well, Nick Singleton can be that guy. He's also been really good as a pass protector and solid in the receiving game as well. He's actually been very good in the receiving game. On to the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going Jihad Campbell. This guy can't be ignored much longer. He is, to me, the best linebacker in this class. He is so athletic. He's long. He is strong. Now, he does need to work on his play strength a little bit in terms of like taking on blockers, but he's got all the potential really to do that. And he certainly can move in coverage extremely well. He just has very fluid movement skills. And he can also rush the passer a little bit as well. He can be a hybrid pass rusher for this team. So it's like they haven't valued linebacker, but I don't think they've had a chance to draft a guy like Jihad Campbell either. Somebody that can be a difference maker for them at the linebacker position. And also, they've had issues covering some tight ends, and you got a good division of tight ends. So you need to make sure you can cover those guys. Jihad Campbell's going to do that. Maxwell Harrison, Kentucky cornerback, fell to this point, just BPA, and they need another corner in that room. They're going to have to fill some secondary voids and free agency too in this scenario. However, Harrison definitely could be a starter for them. And just like Andrew Phillips was a steal in round number 3, I think maybe Maxwell Harrison could end up being a steal just with the injuries. Maybe that's why he falls a little bit. Then you got Chase Lint from UConn. He is that developmental right tackle behind Rob Havenstein. He has the traits, really good mover in space. He just needs to work on his craft, his hand technique, get stronger. He does get pushed back, but he certainly does have that ability to really develop, and with his athleticism, I think he's going to be an ideal fit for them and Sean McVay's offense. On to the Green Bay Packers, we're starting this thing off with a monster in the middle, Kenneth Grant. I do corner all the time. What if they get a free agent in corner, maybe like a sign a veteran on a 1-year deal? So maybe they sort of say, well, let's go in more of the developmental route. I definitely think that's a possibility. So Kenneth Grant, you put him next to Kenny Clark, and then also Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks. Like, that's kind of your interior wrecking machine rotation. That really would be nice for them. You got Alec Ayumana, wide receiver, especially with Christian Watson getting injured now. He's probably going to miss a good chunk of next season. Unfortunately, it's bad timing, but it is what it is. And sometimes those injuries happen late, and it sucks no matter when they happen. But yeah, you go at another big play receiver on the outside. Alec Ayumana with his speed can be someone in that range. It just, obviously, with Watson's injuries, you might have to start thinking about investing into the receiver position. And Alec Ayumana at this point in the draft, I think, makes a lot of sense. And then we go Zy Alexander from LSU, sticky man coverage corner, good off the line, very comfortable in press coverage. He's a solid athlete, not an elite athlete, but a solid athlete, and somebody that can be, a development piece. If you did bring in a 1-year veteran guy, you can let him be a rotational player with Carrington Valentine. Just give you some more depth in the cornerback room, if nothing else. On to the Los Angeles Chargers, we're going Nick Gordon, BPA. At this point, him at number 25. I do think he lacks the dynamicism, right? Maybe he doesn't have that crazy explosive speed. He did gain some weight, it looks like, at Texas A&M this season compared to Purdue. So maybe if you ask him to drop maybe 10 pounds or so, get a little faster, get a little more explosive, I think that would be beneficial for him, especially for the Chargers and their scheme. Getting him as another edge rusher to replace Khalil Mack, I think it'd be a great ad for this team, because they're going to have to look at moving on from Mack. He's just going to be more than likely too expensive. Bosa's still under contract, so you got to find a little cheaper, a little younger with next to Tui Pelotu as well. You got Amarian Hampton, running back from North Carolina. At this point at 57, I think it makes sense. Add yourself an elite runner. So, yeah, Kamani Vidal is somebody in there. You got Haskins, but long-term wise, I don't know if they're going to bring back J.K. Dobbins. I would imagine he'd be super expensive. Same thing with Gus Edwards. However, I guess where Edwards is still under contract, I believe. Anyway, like, they still need a number one runner in there. I think Hampton will certainly help them out in that regard. He's also a solid receiving back as well. Jake Brainstorm, tight end from Clemson. Going at another playmaker for Justin Herbert. Let's just hope they Quentin Johnston and then also Ladd McConkey. If those two guys if Johnson can play like that, obviously McConkey's been a beast, man. But if you have Johnson playing like that, I keep saying Judkins, but in my head, like, Judkin. No, it's Johnson. But anyway, Brainstorm will be a nice big play tight end for them in their offense. He still needs to develop a little bit more into his body, into his frame, and as a blocker, but he does have the grit and the mentality to do that, and certainly has the catch radius to be a big-time threat in the vertical seam route department. On to the Washington Commanders, and the Commanders, downtown D.C. capital. What do you do, right? Get a political candidate in here, Emeka Egbuka. He is like a political candidate because he's just solid at everything. You know, he knows how to do it. You know what I mean? Well, your political candidate is probably just saying, no, that's not how it works over there in Washington, D.C. But politics aside, all right, no more of that. We're not running or anything like that. G-Sling for off. No, I approve this. I don't approve that message at all. Emeka Egbuka, though, going to be a great weapon with Scary Terry. They need some more depth in that room. And Egbuka can play inside out. I don't see any problem with him being able to play just slot or outside. He can play inside out. So Luke McCaffrey can be your slot or however you want to work at. And then we get some defense on day 2. Landon Jackson, Barrett Carter. Get some more pass rushers. They're just so thin. Obviously, the only guy under contract right now is DeMarcus Armstrong. Now, Frankie Louvu is like a hybrid pass rusher. Of course, he is under contract. Nonetheless, like, they need another pass rusher. Landon Jackson, with his size, with his crazy arm length, you get another edge setter there and somebody that's going to be a disruptor on the outside. Can also kick in on pass rushing downs. They just need more pass rush, clearly. They're going to need some more help. They're going to have to sign somebody in free agency as well. Like, they're not going to be able to fill this just in the draft more than likely, especially where they're picking at 26 right now. So we'll see how all that works out. I do think that they'll have options, though, in this pass rushing class to at least add somebody with some serious rotation ability early on and be a long-term starter. And then Barrett Carter. I like Barrett Carter a ton, man. I think he's one of those guys that I think is being a little undervalued right now. He's really athletic. I think he can drop back into coverage. He needs to get a little bit better with his coverage feel right now. That's something that's going to be needs to be developed with him. But I think he's got all the traits in terms of like zone feel, right? He can stick man to man. You put him on somebody on a tight end, he can do it. Like, he can cover guys. He's got flippy hips, sticky hips. We're going to call it flippy hips now because that just sounds way better. He's got flippy hips and he just covers so smoothly. If he lost like 10, 15 pounds, he could legit probably play in the slot full time. He legit has that type of athleticism. But he's going to be a great coverage linebacker for this team. And again, another tough division has some solid tight ends and some up-and-coming tight ends in the division. On to the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going Armin M'Bu. And I can't wait for the offseason approach because I think M'Bu is going to be a big-time riser. Scouts are going to push this guy up the boards, and for good reason. He's got 3 key traits. It's strength, it's arm length, and it's athleticism. Those are his key 3 pillars that are going to go a long way. Now, the areas he needs to work on, and the reason why I gave him a day 2 grade when I did an evaluation on him, was his hand placement, his hand technique, and then also his lunging. He lunges way too often. He's not the biggest guy, so some teams are going to view him more as a guard. And for the Ravens, I think that would be great. Move him inside of one of those guard positions, you fill a void there, and really help them out on that interior because he is a mean kicking butt kicker in the run game. And once again, using all those crazy puns. But yeah, I think he really will be a great run blocker for this team. Adds another athletic offensive lineman on that interior next to Tyler Lindenbaum. And as I talk about, he's strong. He is very strong. He's strong and athletic. And then you got Xavier Restrepo adding a slot weapon for this team. So you add in, obviously, you got your dynamic throw with Zay Flowers, your outside target. Bateman's playing inside and out, but I think Restrepo gives him a true slot weapon and a reliable target. For Lamar Jackson and then Jared Ivey, the edge rusher at Ole Miss, he's somebody that I see playing like a 5-tech role in the next level. 3-tech, 5-tech, hybrid edge rusher, and gives him some more depth in that Broderick Washington type of ability. With his strength and his profile, he's going to be really good on the interior. On to the Vikings, skull. And I'm going to take Trey Amos here, the cornerback from Ole Miss. He's got great length, great size on the outside. I mean, he's got good size. I mean, he's not the biggest guy, but he is definitely strong there on the outside. He's not afraid to tackle. He's a very good tackler, actually. Very short tackler. I was very impressed with that with Trey Amos. He's not the most switched up guy. That's not his game. He's not a crazy athlete, but he knows how to cover. He knows how to stay in the hip pocket, and they need some more cornerback help, especially if Byron Murphy ends up walking. Stephon Gilmore's getting older now, so they're going to need more cornerback help for sure. Tate Ratledge, offensive line, he fell at this point, and that was an easy pick. I don't know, it just happened. He kind of fell in this draft class for whatever reason, but Ratledge, really solid player. I don't know if he's going to be a high-end dude or anything like that. His athleticism and lateral agility is a bit lacking at times, but he's very, very strong. He can move dudes in the run game. He's very good with his angles, and he's a solid pass protector. He's got great hands, so he's going to be a very, very nice force for them at that either right guard, left guard position to help out that interior, which has been a sneaky problem for this Vikings team. So they need to improve that this offseason. Buffalo Bills, and I'm going Jahdae Barrett. I know I go with this one all the time, but he's a perfect fit for them. He gives you versatility, whether it's cornerback, slot corner, safety, which they need another outside corner to pair along with Christian Benford. And Johnson's, Taron Johnson's a great corner, but he's also been a little banged up, so they could use a little versatility there. Plus, hey, Barron could play safety too for them. So, and their safeties, they need some more help in the safety room as well. You got Brandon Switson, LSU edge rusher. He has been really, really good this season at LSU, getting his chance. And as a pass rusher, he knows how to get after the quarterback. He's got a lot of pass rush moves under his belt. So you get another player understudy for Von Miller here, get some more depth. Remember, AJ Epineza going in last year of his contract as well. Evan Stewart, Oregon, wide receiver, is going to be another addition for them. And I know Evan Stewart, unfortunately, I was like, what? Why didn't he play in the All-State? Some injury came up. Anyway, he's a really good player. Just disappointed with the inconsistency. We'll see if he comes back. For right now, he's not made his decision just yet, but he is a really good playmaker and will add somebody that if you hit, you can find a steal on a number one playmaker. On to the Philadelphia Eagles. This was BPA. It just was. And Howie Roseman saying, I'm going to take Colston Loveland. We'll develop him behind Dallas Goedert for a season, and we'll roll from there. His athleticism, his route running ability, he's one of the best at getting open other than John Michael Galenborg in all of college football. Harold Fanning's really good too, of course, but Tyler Warren's just a physical specimen. There's a lot of good tight ends, I'll tell you right now, but I think that Colston Loveland at this point is BPA. I mean, Grant Calcaterra has been nice, but I think that you add in someone like Colston Loveland to be an understudy who is Dallas Goedert going to last year of his contract makes a lot of sense. We also add in Kyle Kennard, an edge rusher, can play 3-4 stand-up, can do basic zone drops if they need him to in Vic Fangio's scheme, and he's going to add some more juice to the pass rush for this team with now losing Brandon Graham, possibly retirement, and then Josh Sweat is also a free agent. So you're going to need a little bit more depth. Who can be that third guy to go along with Bryce Huff and then Nolan Smith? And then finally, we got Blake Miller, developmental right tackle for the team, can be a developmental behind Elaine Johnson for a season or two. He's got the size, he's got the length, he just needs time. He's going to need to get stronger, needs to work on really squaring up edge rushers. I think that's one of his biggest problems. He's just not quite comfortable mirroring pass rushers right now. So that's something he can work with Jeff Stoutland University, whatever you want to call it. But you get yourself a nice developmental tackle to finish that up. On the Kansas City Chiefs here, I'm starting off with offensive line. It is such a big void that they have to go and invest in it. Whether it's free agency, whether it's the draft, they need to find a franchise left tackle. It's been such a problem for them, and Joe Thuney's had to step in and play left tackle for them. Suamate, I like him on the inside. Put him at one of those guard positions, especially if you lose Trey Smith. And Wanya Morris, more of a swing tackle at this point. You need to find a left tackle long haul. Williams doesn't have left tackle experience, at least at the college days. I'm not sure going back to high school, but he has the size. Maybe he can be like a J.C. Latham ability, move over to left tackle. He certainly has the physical traits to do it. Darian Porter, another guy with crazy physical traits, man. And somebody in Spags defense, you get another guy with some size and crazy athleticism on the perimeter. Get some more depth in the cornerback position. And then with their late day 2 picks, you got Omar Norman Lott and then Jaden Hicks, going to add some more defense. Who's going to be that number 2 guy next to Chris Jones? Omar Norman Lott. He's going to add more pass rush into that defensive line with his traits and athleticism. He does need to get stronger at the point of attack, but he's going to really help them out, at least as a rotational role early on. I mean, maybe they need more of a nose guy next to Chris Jones. However, with where the board fell, I just felt like Omar Norman Lott, I didn't want to force anything. He'd be a really nice addition, especially if you lose Tayshawn Wharton. He could at least fill that role. And then finally, I add in Jaden Higgins as another big-time playmaker on the outside with some size. I was looking for somebody with a little more size and catch radius, and I think Higgins gives you that. And he's also a solid athlete for his size. He's a little slow off the line, but, hey, he's 6'3" and change. He's a big guy, 210-plus pounds. But he's got a really, really sure hands and somebody that's been uber reliable, whether he's been playing big slot on the outside. That's also nice. He's got versatility to move inside out. Well, let's finish it up here with the projected Super Bowl champion, Detroit Lions here. And I'm going to roar right into another edge rusher. You got Zadarius Smith still under contract, so at least you have him around. But at the same time, it wouldn't hurt to draft just BPA. Whoever's the best available prospect is who you take, Detroit, and get some more talent for the future into the edge room. Aiden Hutchinson, you don't have to rush him, right? I mean, he may be back. If they are in the Super Bowl, they said he might be able to come back. So I'll be super pumped up if you can get Aiden Hutchinson back for the Super Bowl. That would be insane. They could use him for sure. Anyway, you add in Shamar Stewart to be a base end. Can also kick inside on pass rush downs too. So it's like you can get Zadarius Smith. You can have Shamar Stewart out there, Aiden Hutchinson all out in those packages. Josh Pascal's another guy that can work inside out too. So that's your rotation going into next season. Those 4 guys, it's something to really bolster and build upon. Other areas they could look at in the first round, of course, offensive line. I go Jonas Salvanaia, help out that offensive interior. He just fits that bill, right? Be that right guard of the future for them. He's a tough, he's just a tough mauler in the run game. And pass protection wise, I thought he was strong at right tackle. He had to shift over to left tackle, and that's kind of where some of those stats came from, playing a little bit out of position for him. He's not going to be a left tackle in the NFL. He just doesn't really have the size profile, length profile, and athleticism to do that. He's going to be a mean butt kicker, though, on the interior as a guard and as an emergency swing tackle. That I'm fine with. And you help out that offensive line. Graham Glasgow is under contract. You have Christian Mahogany, and maybe he can be the long-term guard for them. But I do think you still need to add a little more competition. Just go BPA, as I talked about. And he was BPA at that point. Anyway, I think that's a really good value on Salvanaia. So that's going to finish up this draft here. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions on this mock draft. What would you do differently? I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, definitely roast me in the comments. Hit me up, especially those quarterbacks. You're like, what? Are you high? Oh, you were singing about getting high earlier. I know you, G-Sling. What are you doing? I don't smoke. But anyway, I hope you guys have a cool day. I'll talk to you real soon.